Good afternoon and welcome to our next vlog. Here with Tom, having a cup of miserable tea.
Miserable tea. Jord, we can't all drink Stella at 1 o'clock in the afternoon like you do, can we?
Well, he's drinking his miserable tea and we're here to talk about some great matches we've had recently and gonna have a good little chat about it, basically.
So, thank you for the nice comments on the last vlog. We thought it went brilliantly too, didn't we, Jord?
Yep.
Lots of other people seemed to, but we certainly did, didn't we?
We enjoyed it.
So, we're going to start with you, because you have won a festival, haven't you, my boy?
No, we're not. No, we're not. We're going to start with you.
Okay.
And you're going to talk about feeder flinging for carp at Boddington. Tell the story to the people. Tell them.
Guys, if we're going to talk about this, then it's typical tale, I'm going to say, of winter luck. This time of year, we all know that fishing can be really, really tough. So, one match that I wanted to talk about that really sort of stuck with me from the last few weeks has been a couple of weeks ago. I managed to qualify for the Golden Rod Final at Boddington Reservoir. Now, I've never fished a match at Boddington's before. It was typical cold.
You've been lots on features and things and testing. You've done your reviews.
Yeah. I suppose I tell a lie. I did that when I was very, 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 very young child.
So you're lying to the people.
I was lying because I did fish one, but when I fished it, I was about 16 and it was floating pole. Everyone was floating the pole,
really?
Pellets in and catching these 3-pound carp. So that's how long ago it was since I fished a match there. But I have filmed there. I've done some work there, and it was great, really, mate. It was nice because it was something totally different. And believe it or not, because I don't really know that much about that sort of fishing, I actually did a bit of research, watched a few videos.
Yeah.
And the best video, bar none, that I watched was with Steve Ringer on the North Lake and at JCB, but a similar sort of thing, long-range hybrid fishing, so still very relevant. I was really interested in how Steve fished. And the thing that he said that stuck with me and influenced how I fished that match was the importance, basically, of doing things a little bit different, making your feeder, making your hook bait, making everything stand out. Now, he did it on his video with some of the Ringer's boilie cushion, his micros. You know, there was a few little tweaks he did to give himself an edge. So I thought, well, what can I do? So, two things. One that Tommy had, well, three things, actually. Three things, really. One that Tommy had showed me on the Fuka film in the year before. I put some red Fuka micros in with my normal micros.
Yeah.
Another one was I actually used a prototype wafter, which I thought was a bit different. And I thought, well, they can't have seen that one before because nobody's ever fished with one there before. So it's got to be totally different to what anyone else is doing. And the other one was putting the Corda Goo, the pineapple smoke Corda Goo, all over the feeder. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I'm not going to bore them with the details, but I had one bite, one fish, and it qualified. But basically, I was in a line of 30 anglers. And from that 30 anglers, nobody else had a single carp. That's how high it was.
Incredible, isn't it?
So, yeah, you know, you could say, I probably would say, to be honest, on balance, it was luck. A little bit lucky to get one. But in that sort of match, I mean, I've fished, I said, not specifically at on the Gloucester, but I've done a lot of that sort of fishing before where it's rock hard. And the place I always think of when it's like that is the Gloucester Canal, when it's pole fishing for bream. And it's exactly the same. It's like, if you can set up your peg, so you're super confident that you're going to get a bite. The fact that you're putting, you know, with that goo, I put a lot of attraction through the water, I felt. The fact that Fuka was totally different to anything they'd seen, I thought that was good. And it did, it worked. It was really nice and reassuring because it made me think all these little things that I was hoping were edges and I thought were edges did actually result in a bite, you know. So, yeah, it was a very, very interesting match. Really looking forward now to the Golden Rod Final. You've been in that before at Larford. You know Larford very well. So
you're very close to Larford.
You're going to be the information on the inside, aren't you?
Yeah. One other thing you did which was quite interesting at Boddington is lots of people chuck out to a certain line and then chase the fish out, don't they?
Yeah.
Like they cast further and further and further. And you didn't actually do that, did you?
No.
You just fished in the one spot all day.
I fished one line. Same sort of thinking, you know. I always think when it's rock hard, you want to set a trap. If you spread bait everywhere, then who knows where that fish is going to eat, you know.
Could eat all separate.
But at least if you've got, you know, good distance, well, 80 yards, which was a bit of a strain with the casting, Jord, on the 14-foot Aventus came into play. One pull, and you know, I do think it's important that when it's rock hard and it's about getting one bite, I think one single-minded approach like that is really, really good. Don't get me wrong, I think if it's like more faffy fishing where you're trying to nick a few bites on a hard, clear venue, I'll have lots of different lines. When you're fishing for maybe, a low weight but several fish, 20-odd fish or whatever, that's a different school of thought altogether. But
what gear did you use then? You've already said you used 14-foot Aventus.
14-foot Aventus, it was
Reel.
I think it's a 4,000 size Daiwa TDR distance. Or tournament distance, TDR distance.
Tournament, I'm sure it is.
I thought the TDR. The blue Daiwa reels, anyway, TDR distance.
The photo's on the screen now, anyway.
Yes. And then I used a 6-pound Guru pulse line.
Yeah.
With a 8-pound Daiwa Tournament ST shock leader.
Feeder?
Feeder was a 45-gram Guru hybrid. Hook was a size 10 QM1.
Big feeder.
The big size of the long stem as well. Large, Jord, large
and in charge.
Absolutely. Size 10 QM1, and it came in. Black hydro through the stem. Bloody
perfect.
Lovely. So, enough about me. I mean, that was what I would class as a slightly lucky result.
Complete fluke, really.
Very affirming for all the reasons I've described, but basically lucky. One thing that can't be said to be luck, though, is your last little run on the Larford Silverfish Festival. To win a festival over 4 days is not luck, is it, Paul?
Oh, it's complete luck. I drew very well every day. Drew on the bream and won. No.
Let's start with day one. Come on. In fact, start with actually the Saturday before, because you qualified for Silverfish final that day.
So in the same week, basically, the weekend and then the week afterwards, I fished Larford Silverfish, basically. On the Saturday, it was a silverfish qualifier via the Angling Trust, their competition. I drew paper pegged 3 on the Burbank, which is about peg 10 area. It's quite deep, but it was all coloured and it looked beautiful for just fishing the pole.
Mild as well, wasn't it? Quite mild.
You could tell it was going to fish very, very well. So I fished the feeder for about half an hour while resting my pole lines. Caught a few skimmers and everyone were catching on the pole straight away, which is incredible for Larford. That hardly ever happens where they catch on the pole from the off. So I've gone on my pole line and I basically sat long all day and had bites from skimmers all day from all different sizes. And then in the last hour they rocked up short, really, really big ones. They're like 3 to 5 pound. And I end up
beep. Carry on.
Anyway, I ended up having a lovely day's fishing. I weighed in 75 pound, which was not even enough to frame in the match that day, but I actually won the bank of the Burbank and qualified for the Angling Trust Silverfish final. So
that was a great
result, and it made me book on to the Larford Festival, Silverfish Festival. It was over 4 days, Monday to Thursday, and on day one I could tell it was still going to fish well, because Saturday wasn't far away, the conditions hadn't changed a lot. So I had another lovely day's fishing. Feeder, long pole, mainly long pole.
Right, stop right there, son. I'm going to dig into you. You can't just say feeder, long pole. I need to know what you did on the feeder and what you did on the long pole.
But it's quite interesting. The first few days, well, the Saturday and the Monday and the Tuesday, I've used the same tactics, basically, which is fishing a cage feeder about 25 metres, Preston hex mesh ones, and it's got like 4 hole ones and 3 hole ones. I've mixed around with both. I've put in my ground bait. I've used F1 Dark and Thatcher's original 50-50. So it's quite
potent.
Quite potent, yeah, quite fish mealy, lovely mix. I put some micros in. And that's it really. I didn't put a lot in the feeder because I wasn't planning on fishing it very long those first few days. And I've just fished maggots on the hook or little bits of worm. And on the pole line, I've fed 5 balls of ground bait with 2 nips with worms, dead maggots, and also some micros. But to be fair, I didn't feed that many worms at the start, but it was good to top up with worms to get the bigger fish in the peg.
Just the ground bait and the micros to start, and then use the worms.
Yes, I topped up more with worms as the day was going on to try and catch the bigger fish.
Did you fish over your bait, Jord, or past your bait?
No, I fished on my bait all those days. The water was still coloured those 3 days, and I just felt the fish were coming straight to the bait. It was really positive fishing, really good fishing, And that's what I did. I
Talk
caught
us through your rigs then, your typical rig for the pole.
my rigs. It was pretty much the same depth. I've used from between a 0.75 and a gram and a half Kerry.
Yeah.
It was flat calm those first 3 days. There was no tow or anything. If it was towing, you'd need a bigger float to hold it still over your bait. 2 to 4 inches over depth were nice. But it was really, really good line for me. The winning line was my short line, where I've fed about halfway through the match for the last hour, and basically I just piled in big handfuls of micros in the ground bait, loads of worms, loads of maggots, just to come in. It's just to get them in, and I've gone over it with a bunch of maggots and caught these great fish at the end.
Green.
Yeah.
Probably what, 4 or 5 pounds.
Yeah, I caught between 5 and 10 every day those first 3 days.
And they were big, weren't
And they're
they?
big. And they're big. They're the winners. So on the Saturday I had £75. On Monday I won my section with £51, second in the match. And on Tuesday I had £45 and was also second in the match. So 3 great days. But then the weather took a change for the Wednesday and Thursday. It went cold and it went really, really a bit windier. And I could tell like the water was getting clearer. So it was taking longer to get bites on the pole and the feeder. And I got out of jail the 3rd day really, because like I did more feeder fishing, fished a feeder for a bit longer, had to come in on the pole, have little runs on the long pole, no short fish after the 2nd day of the festival. So I had to keep going long, and then I'd go on my cage feed and I'd nick a few fish, and it was nice. And I just managed to get over the line on that one to win the section with £30, I believe. Might not have been £30, but I think I had 30.
I think you had £30.
32 or £33, I believe, to just win the section by £2. So that was nice. And then on the last day, it completely changed. It went really, really cold. It was the start of the winter for me. The ground was frosty. Considering at the start of the festival, it was like 15, 16. I remember fishing in just a hoodie. And then on the last day, I was wrapped up with a cold, freezing cold wind in my face. But on the last day, I had a great stroke of luck, you know.
What happened?
I drew the end peg on the chalet bank towards where they've been doing some work.
Not like you, because that's an end peg flyer, is it?
And the best thing is the day before it won the whole match as well, with like a great weight of like £70 or something. And I drew it, I was like, this is my chance to win the festival here. And it was a lot shallower, that one. It was about 7 foot, all my other pegs were about 10 foot. And it was a real struggle. But I decided to set a method feeder rod up because I thought, nobody's been chucking in the middle. It's getting harder, the fish might push out, so I decided to fish a method feeder with braid. It's lovely fishing a method feeder with braid in the middle of the lake, and I caught a handful of bream on that and a handful of bream on the long pole really late, like last half an hour, and I weighed £23 to win the section, which won me the festival. Great weeks fishing.
How much did you make then? How much did that money did you win for that?
I think I won £1,000 for that.
That's very good, isn't it?
Lovely week that.
What did you do? Put it under the bed with all the rest, pal?
Put it under the bed with all the rest, yeah.
I bet that light bulb is burning your nose when you get in bed now.
Great fishing. I fished like something a lot of people don't do there. I fished with like 6 slip elastic. Lots of people fish a lot heavier because they're a nice damper fish. But I think with a 6 slip you can ship back nice and you never ever, the fish don't come off. I think on heavier you can bump them.
What hooks do you use for that game?
I use SFLs on 010 fluorocarbon.
Right.
Really nice. I also use an 8-inch hook length. They're not like the normal 6. Most people use 6, don't they? I think 8 inches allows you to lay a bit more line on the bottom if it was towing. And I just think the fish prefer that.
Love it. Fantastic. We're back.
Are we on?
We're on.
You're joking.
No, people love seeing you.
Are we talking about another one of your boring matches next, are we?
People love to see you drinking your squash like that, pal. I mean, what sort of weirdo? You know the worst thing about this, folks? I don't think any other studio guest in the whole country would have to put up with being sat next to these. With, of course, the stench. The fungal nail infection is giving off a stench.
Never mind, eh? You'll live, won't you?
I hope so.
Talk away.
Well, shouldn't you be saying, Tom, I need to ask you about some great recent success.
Tom?
Yes?
I need to ask you about some great recent success.
You do, don't you?
Skimmer fishing.
Yeah, so it's another
qualifier, isn't it?
commercial silverfish type thing to talk about. There's actually 2 matches which worked really, really well for me lately. I've got to give a bit of credit to somebody before we dive into exactly what I've done, because sometimes you get given gems of information in fishing that make a real difference to what you catch. And I actually got one of them off Jamie Hughes, because I'm going to talk about a match at Birch House Lakes near Derby.
Can't get much better than him, can you, for info?
No, and he had been dominating the frame and winning matches there. I think he won something like 6 out of 7 matches he'd fished before this one.
Incredible.
And he'd done it on soft pellets. Really feeding negatively and fishing soft pellets. And it was good enough to tell me all about it, how he'd been fishing. Now, nothing he told me was new to me. I have fished pellets like that before, quite a few times, many years ago. But lately, on the venues I go to, pellets haven't really been great. Hallcroft have not been
very good this year, have they?
Not been as good as they can be. There's one particular lake, Reed Pool, where they work really well. But other than the other lakes, no. So, it was just a real sort of useful piece of information to know that tactic was working. And because it was such clear information and it had such good results, I did something I hardly ever do. I just literally went single-minded, one track, and did exactly what he said. It's one line on this Birch House Lake, 14.5 metres out from the bank, and just had a lovely steady day. Dead simple fishing, feeding, a little pea of crushed expander at the start, and then, between sort of 6 and 10 micros through the day, fed a few more towards the end of the match. But the key was really fishing a nice light rig, quite positively shotted so you could see the bites off the little skimmers. Green gamma hook, 16 green gamma hook, 5-inch hook length. One of the RW winter Maggie floats, so you could really read the bites off them.
Very thin tip on them.
Yes, 1 mil tip. 4 elastic through the pole, so you weren't bumping them and they weren't coming to the surface when you hooked them. And it was just a lovely day's fishing. So yeah, I was lucky enough to win that qualifier at Birch House and qualify for the On the Flyer Classic final, which is
Cooper's Lake, isn't it?
Cooper's
March?
Lake. It's near Derby somewhere.
No, it's in March.
Not in March, near Derby.
I know what you're trying to make out there, Tom. I see what you've done there.
It's in February, the end of February.
£7,000 you're going to win when you win that, aren't you?
£7,000, yeah, for the winner. So it'd be nice, but it's going to be very difficult too because we've got Jamie Hughes, Andy May, and a host of other stars in that final. Sean Ashby to beat. So a lot of good anglers to beat. So we'll have to see. But you never know, do you?
You never know.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Ah.
And that same tactic actually went to the Riddings near Tamworth. We did exactly the same a couple of weeks later. Had another lovely day. Won my lake on one of the Fishing for Info matches. I was thinking about it, I tell you what I think with that, Jord, that style of fishing. I think it perfectly suits small lakes full of skimmers when there's a lot of anglers on. I think that's when that pellet fishing tactic is at its best. When there's a lot of pressure on a lake.
And the small skimmers, it's important, I think.
Yeah, I do. That was... Oh, the other thing to mention is dead light lines and hook lengths. 010 main line, 07 hook length. Really light.
Very thin.
Very fine. Lift, don't strike. Had a few fish on both matches on sort of the Fuka 3 mil, the brown stuff. Had more fish, to be honest, on a Bait Tech 2 mil expander, though.
Ooh.
I think it's a bit softer. They could sort of suck it in. And they were on. When there were a lot of fish in the peg, the Fuka was probably a bit better because it was heavier. And I felt like they could sort of pick it out easy. You got even more positive indications. But then it were quite hard fishing. So for most of the match, an expander was better. But it was certainly interesting. Really opened my eyes to just how negative you can be to catch quite a big weight. Really.
Yeah.
So there you are, folks. A nice little block. It's not going to be as long before we do the next one because we've got a couple of other matches to talk about.
We've got a few matches coming up very soon to talk about. So
we'll be back with you
very shortly
in the next couple of weeks. Jordan, you may turn the camera off now.
Thanks, people. Goodbye.